Advisory is not a service line, it's a mindset. Clients ask what happened, advisory asks what's next. Compliance fills in forms, advisory drives decisions, and only one of those roles has a future in accounting. What happens over the next few months or couple of years in your accounting role when 50% of everything you do is taken up with automation and AI? We know how stuff changes. We're in a 6-part series here on the Accounting Influencers podcast. Your world, this is where you sit. This is your battlefield. And here's the challenge for you. Most accountants are not trained in the skills that I've just said. It's not part of your qualification, your university course, your CPA exams. They're built around technical competence, not influence, which is why so many people in the accounting profession are getting left behind. They're becoming irrelevant. And this is where I want you to stand out. If you commit to developing these advisory skills, you're going to make yourself valuable in ways that AI and automation cannot touch. What happens over the next few months or couple of years in your accounting role when 50% of everything you do is taken up with automation and AI, or private equity, or a big merger comes in, you're acquired or you acquire someone else, and you find that you're starting to get marginalized, or you're feeling a little bit less like you're in the middle of things? We know how stuff changes, and we're in a series here on the Accounting Influencers podcast, giving you stuff that keeps you relevant and in the game. We're in a 6-part series on the journey from compliance to counsel. And last week we talked about clients, and we saw how 70% of businesses said they would switch firms if their accountant was not proactive enough. In other words, there's a firm out there, there's an accountant out there that's been more proactive with the advice that they're offering. And we unpacked why clients no longer want form fillers, why they want foresight, strategy, and sector fluency from their advisors. If you missed episode 2, you can go and catch it up now. It's the demand side of the story that we're looking at today. And episode 1 was the threat. Just to give you a recap, we are looking at why things are changing for accountants, how AI, how automation, how private equity, the collapse in the compliance function and stripping out the technically competent people and leaving them as invisible professionals. We talked about how irrelevance equals unemployment. And if you do not stay relevant and influential, you're going to be marginalized. This is Accounting Influencers. I'm Rob Brown, and you're listening to, this series on compliance to counsel, the accountant's survival guide in the age of AI and M&A and private equity and everything else that's going on. There are uncharted waters out there, and we want to equip you with the stuff you need to stay ahead of the curve. And this show is where ambitious accountants get that foresight, get the playbook to stay relevant, authoritative when irrelevance equals unemployment. So here's where we are. Episode 1 was the threat. Episode 2 was the demand by clients. Episode 3 is the advisor's mindset. And next time we're going to move on to the playbook and get really practical for making the shift from accountant to proactive, future-looking advisor. And then we're going to look at tech as your tool, your ally. That's episode 5 in this series. And then episode 6, we'll look at building your personal brand as the ultimate weapon in career insurance. So let's get into today. This is number 3, and we're looking at the difference between the compliance-based accountant and the advisory-based accountant. Now, let's get this straight. I'm not against compliance. It's a fundamental part of the accounting function, and it has been for thousands of years probably. It is being seen as less important, less relevant, certainly less valued by clients. There's downward pressure on compliance fees. We know how easily many compliance functions can be done with a push of a button, and the Excel spreadsheet started this, and it's just gone on from there. So compliance looks back and says what happened. Advice looks forward and says what's next. So compliance is history, advisory is, it's called, or advice, it's foresight. It's a more project-based, consultative-based approach. The compliance stuff reports, and the advisory interprets, analyzes, recommends, projects. Compliance is about forms, advisory is about decisions. So you see in this pivot here that you're probably already in. I don't pretend to be bringing you some dawn-breaking revolution to say, hey, there's something new out there. You know it's out there. The writing's on the wall. The socials are full of it. But I want to tell you why it matters. We know that AI and automation are already replacing the backward-looking mindset. In the first show, looking at these shifts, we talked about the layoffs in accounting. and the layoffs in consulting firms and your McKinseys and your Boston Consulting Group and your KPMGs and your PwCs, and insert your own firm there. But they're all investing heavily in AI. And what is that AI doing? Well, a lot of what you and your peers are doing right now, the knowledge workers, the white collar work, that middle management, and even some of the senior roles, they are being put out to grass, if you like. So we need to make the shift. AI and automation are replacing a backward-looking mindset. Software can already report what happened. Software can actually report what's going to happen. The machines, they can do all the reconciliations. The algorithms can process whatever you need, and the more complicated, the better. But no algorithm, no large language learning model can build trust. They can't read between the lines like humans can. They can't understand context and nuance the way humans can. They can't sense what a client is saying and feeling and what they are not saying and not feeling. They can't read human emotions like you can. They can't help them weigh competing priorities in the context of life and business and family and a whole other range of complex human emotions. And this is where you come in. This is where you've got your edge. You need to adopt, develop, cultivate a mindset that shifts from technician, a doer, an order taker, a compliance machine, to almost an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs turn nothing into something. They are ideas people. They make suggestions. They solve problems. They go from process to partner. They go from silent and compliant and you ask, I answer, to influential and proactive. Here's a cross-industry signal that I came across. McKinsey produced a report called The Future of Work. And he said the fastest growing roles are in management and in communication and in strategy, and that's people stuff, isn't it? Management is people, communication, strategy, it's people, it's strategy. The slowest growing, said McKinsey, are clerical, data entry, back office. And that's a signal for accountants too. We did a series a little while ago on the threat to different levels of the accounting strata, the death of entry-level jobs, because that's been taken up by automation and AI, how middle management's been marginalized, the threat for partners and more senior people. So that's all out there. So what does an advisor's mindset look like? We're talking about mindset in this episode, so I want to get really practical with you. Here are 5 things that you can tick off like a checklist. I'll give yourself a score out of 10. Number 1, curiosity. How curious are you? Do you ask questions that nobody else asks? Do you show a boldness and a courage and a frankness to be candid and ask tough questions? So advisory starts with curiosity about the client's business, their industry, their pressures, their goals, their personal circumstances, their state of mind. I'm not saying you become a therapist or a counselor or a psychiatrist, but you want to get behind the stuff that you're being told. So you've got to get super curious. Mark yourself out of 10 on curiosity. That's coachable. You can learn to spot these things and read human emotions and faces and interpret things. But that's number 1. Number 2, score yourself for commercial acumen or sector fluency, as I've called it in the previous episode. You've got to go beyond the numbers to understand what drives profit, what risks are out there, what opportunities are out there for people in particular industries, particular sectors, particular verticals, niches. This requires a certain amount of commercial acumen or business awareness and industry or domain expertise. Now, you might be fluent in the languages of a few different sectors, but what is going to kill you is having a very wide, broad client base that do a bit of this, a bit of that. How can you speak with relevance and any depth in a way that shows that you appreciate their problems, you understand their language, you know what their pain is? It's difficult. So think about specializing with some commercial acumen and business awareness that goes deep into particular sectors. That's number 2. Mark yourself out of 10 for that in the verticals that you're operating. Number 3 is communication. We hear a lot about soft skills. Some people don't like the term. I don't mind it because hard skills is the technical and the measurable. These are a little bit more tangible, I understand. But we're trying to translate mess and complexity into clarity in giving context, and not just the hows and the whats and the whens, but the whys. And clients don't want data. They want the meaning, the interpretation, and then guide me through how I make decisions based on what you're telling me is happening. So you've got to communicate that. You've got to persuade, you've got to influence, you've got to present, you've got to negotiate. You've got to communicate better. You've got to communicate not in a different language to compliance because it's still about the numbers, but you've got to take it a lot further. And that means honing your communication skills. Number 4, what score out of 10 are you going to give yourself on entrepreneurial thinking? Entrepreneurs are great at spotting needs and problems and gaps and patterns and opportunities and threats and who's doing what and who's not doing what and where the gaps are. You're employed. I get that. Unless you own your own firm, you might be entrepreneurial in your mindset, and that's great because you will understand this. You're building a business like your clients are. But think about how decisions today shape outcomes tomorrow. That's how entrepreneurs think. They are ideas people. So give yourself a score for entrepreneurial thinking. And then number 5, give yourself a score for influence. This is kind of like communication, but it's often unspoken. The ability to persuade, to show authority, to frame ideas, to gain buy-in, to occupy a declarative position, to be listened to be followed, to be sought out for your opinion. This is how we shift from that background of just doing what you're told to do and doing what the job description says to being absolutely indispensable. So there are 5 elements you can tick off right there. Curiosity, commercial acumen, communication, entrepreneurial thinking, influence. And I'm not here to define CAS, client advisory services, client accounting services, however you're going to frame that. Some people think that's just bookkeeping. Some people see it goes way beyond that. Some people think that the forecasting and reporting tools out there and the management accounts that you're providing is advisory. I'm not getting into that. I'm not an accountant. If you followed this show a long time, you know I'm a former high school math teacher. I'm a part qualified accountant. I took a degree. I have a diploma in accounting. But to your world, this is where you sit. This is your battlefield. And here's the challenge for you. Most accountants are not trained in the skills that I've just said. It's not part of your qualification, your university course, your CPA exams. They're built around technical competence, not influence, which is why so many people in the accounting profession are getting left behind. They're becoming irrelevant. And this is why I want you to stand out. If you commit to developing these advisory skills, you're going to make yourself valuable in ways that AI and automation cannot touch. So rate yourself out of 10 or 1 to 5, anything you like, but in those areas. And let's find out where we are right now. Let's say you're 50% in each one. That's curiosity, commercial acumen, communication, entrepreneurial thinking, and influence. That's you traveling in second gear in your car. You're coasting, but there's more in there. And you've got to be brutally honest about this because this starts to form your advisory scorecard, doesn't it? Your self-evaluation. Your career insurance depends on your ability to do this. And I want to share with you why this matters at a firm level as well. Deloitte's reported that firms with strong advisory practices grew revenues 30% faster than compliance-only firms. That's Deloitte. They know a thing or two. They're not perfect, but they haven't pulled those statistics out of thin air. So advisory is not a nice to have for you. It's a growth engine. It's a career insurance. And the accountants that learn the mindset of advisory will be the ones leading firms, not the ones waiting to be led. They will shape policy. They will shape strategy. They will shape M&A activity. They will shape the future of the firm. They will shape the future of the profession. So 5 actions now to finish up to apply this to develop, to build an advisor's mindset in your accounting role. Number 1, prepare 3 forward-looking questions to ask each client. Don't wait for the tax season. Be proactive with these. Just call them up. I was thinking of you. I wanted to ask you something. You popped into my mind recently, and this question came right to me. Or I wanted to ask you this. Or this came up in a conversation, and I wanted to make sure you got it. So there's lots of reasons you've got to reach out to a client and ask them a question. But I'm saying get 3 forward-looking questions that you can keep going to, that start to become part of your everyday, your vocabulary, and start asking them. And get 3 that you really like, that you're comfortable with. as an example. What's your biggest goal for the next 3 months? What's the biggest thing you're working on next year? What's your big hope for the next 6 months? It's not difficult, is it? And different clients, you have different ones, but develop your own. Number 2, start a weekly habit of reading one article about your client's industry. This is you building up authority and context and background knowledge and business acumen. Advisory needs influence, and it needs information, and it needs data, and it needs knowledge, and it needs wisdom. So start being a little bit more proactive in stuff that you're reading, particularly in industries that are relevant to your client. Number 3, practice turning numbers. This is a good one. Practice turning numbers into one-sentence insights. A compliance-based accountant would say your margins are flat. You can see right here that, and they'll show you. They're not going anywhere. But an advisor will say your margins are flat, but if you raised prices 2%, you'd add another $500,000 to your bottom line. Insert your own example there. But you see how we turned that number into an insight, into a recommendation, into a suggestion, into a future thinking scenario. You got to get good at that. You got to go beyond the numbers. Number 4, get feedback on your communication. You've got mentors, you've got coaches, but you can do self-feedback. I'm doing a lot of Loom videos these days. You can insert your own video recording thing, but I'm doing things on the screen and recording them and looking back and just self-evaluating. So record yourself explaining a complex issue in under 2 minutes. And then look at the transcript or ChatGPT or do anything else and evaluate it and get it to coach you and say, analyze this explanation that I've done of this scenario and show me where I could be better. And if you're clear, if you're on track, great. If it's confusing, you've got to keep practicing, but you have all the evaluation tools at your disposal right now. You could have coaches and mentors to sit by you as you explain something as well and do some role plays. That's all brilliant, but communicate better and get feedback on your communication. I've done thousands of interviews with my podcasting over the years, and I swear, some people, very professional, influential people, are still using ums and ers and kind ofs and sort ofs and repeating themselves and waffling and going inside out with things and not getting to the point and losing track of where they were. It's basic, but it's coachable. You can do it. And number 5, build influence internally. You need allies, you need advocates, you need door openers, you need champions. So share insights with colleagues, share reports with them. Don't just share good stuff with your clients, because influencers influence teams as well as clients, and advisors influence teams as well as clients. So think about your own and make sure you're building your influence internally as externally. So the mindset comes before the playbook. We're going to look at that next time. We're going to put some more meat on the bones. But if you don't think like an advisor, no amount of tools or process is going to help you. If you want to be more visible and authoritative, this is what I do. I have a personal brand interview service. I help professionals create high impact video content just through interviews that positions you as trusted advisors and gives you content to put out there on the socials. And it's video, which gets attention these days. So if you want a fast way to build your presence or amplify the visibility of some of the people in your firm, some of the leaders, get in touch. I can maybe help. So let's close. Advisory is not a service line. It's a mindset. Compliance asks what happened. Advisory asks what's next. Compliance fills in forms, advisory drives decisions, and only one of those roles has a future in accounting. So you've been tuning into episode 3, From Compliance to Counsel. Episode 1 was the threat, why you need to change things. Episode 2 was the demand in higher expectations from clients and what they need. Today was the mindset, episode 3. And next time in episode 4, we'll get practical and look at the playbook to actually shift from compliance to advisory. If you found this useful, thanks for sharing it with people. Check out our YouTube channel as well. We're just coming up to 6,000 subscribers as we record this one. And check out another couple of shows I'm honored to be involved with. Leaders of the Ledger is with CPA Practice Advisor, where I interview accounting's most influential people and get their stories. Well, some of these people run firms, some of them work in firms. Some of them work in professional associations, but they've got a voice and they've developed a voice and they get things done as a result. Inside Public Accounting with Chelsea Summers. Wonderful show. Really gathering momentum. We tell the stories behind the numbers and the brilliant research that they do. So check out both of those shows. And in closing, remember this. Irrelevance equals unemployment. Irrelevance equals risk to your career. But advisory, visibility, authority equals survival. The choice is yours. Be smart. Make good choices. Have a great day.